in renewable and next-generation energy technologies. I strongly urge that we defeat the previous question, and I urge a no vote on the underlying bill, and I yield back the balance of my time.
Gentleman from Colorado yields back the balance of his time. Gentleman from Texas is recognized.
Thank you, Speaker. You know, I can't recall, I yield myself the balance of our time.
Gentleman is recognized.
I cannot recall a place in the Constitution where it says the House passes a bill, the Senate can't pass it, so the House comes back and tries to find a better bill that maybe the Senate will now take up. Boy, I wish that had happened on that health care stuff back in 2009 and 2010. We'd have a lot better world today. But the fact of the matter is, the House has passed a student loan bill. The Senate has the obligation to act. The deadline of July 1st was, in fact, provided to us by a funding cliff that the Democrats enacted back in 2007 when they started this process. So the deadline was self-imposed by a Democratic majority in the House of Representatives and a Democratic majority in the Senate. Democrats in the other body are fully aware of that deadline, were fully aware of that deadline, and they were the ones that let it lapse. The House had done its work. They were fully capable of passing something, sending it back to us so that it could either be passed or adjusted prior to the July 4th recess. In regards to the rule that in regards to the legislation we're currently considering, we do continue the Republican commitment to maintaining an open and transparent nature to the appropriations process. This rule balances our commitment to energy independence and national security with good stewardship of taxpayer money. I want to again commend Chairman Rogers, Ranking Member Lowy, Chairman Frelinghausen, and Ranking Member Kaptur for working together to craft a bill that balances our spending priorities with our concerns over the deficit and our climbing national debt. At this point, I want to yield back the balance of my time, move the previous question, ask for an aye on the previous question, and an aye on the underlying resolution.
The gentleman from Texas yields back the balance of his time. The question is on ordering the previous question on the resolution. Those in favor say aye. Aye. Those opposed say no. No. In the opinion of the chair, the ayes have it.
Mr. Speaker?
This is a gentleman from Colorado.
On that, I request the yeas and the nays.
The yeas and nays are requested. Those favoring a vote by the yeas and nays will rise. A sufficient number having risen, the yeas and nays are ordered. Members will record their votes by electronic device. Pursuant to Clause 8 and Clause 9 of Rule 20, this 15-minute vote on ordering the previous question will be followed by 5-minute votes on adoption of the House Resolution 288, if ordered, and approval of the journal. This is a 15-minute vote.
So the House is holding the first series of roll call votes of the day on the Energy and Water Project spending bill for FY 2014. It provides just over $30 billion. It's 9% less than this year and 12% less than the President requested. The administration says President Obama will veto the bill if it's sent to him as is. The bill does include the Energy Department's nuclear weapons and uranium programs. Those programs would get more money. Renewable energy and energy research would get less money. Army Corps of Engineers water projects would be cut 2%. Construction would be cut 20%. Corps operations and maintenance would be increased by 11%. The bill also funds, or cuts funds, that is, for the Bureau of Reclamation by 9%. Again, the administration saying that the President will veto it if it is sent to him the way that it is. So debate rules are allowing unlimited amendments. Debate on amendments expected to go into the evening. Should the rule for debate be approved, we do expect general debate to follow with the next set of votes at about 5:45 this afternoon. So while this vote is underway, earlier today, the Senate Judiciary Committee met to consider the nomination of James Comey, President Obama's nominee to replace outgoing FBI Director Robert Mueller. Here's a look at opening statements.
Week before the terrorist attacks of September 11th. We know our world has changed dramatically in that time. We've often debated how best to ensure our national security while protecting the freedom and the liberty and the privacy rights that define us as a great nation. That debate is alive today. And this confirmation hearing provides us another opportunity to evaluate existing policy and to correct our course. Few positions have as much impact on our liberty and our national security as the Director of the FBI. And as the body that considers the President's nominee, the Senate has an important role in this debate, and that debate, of course, begins here in this committee. I welcome Mr. Comey and his family here today, and they'll be introduced in a moment. He's had an outstanding career in law enforcement, served as Deputy Attorney General. He served as the U.S. Attorney for the Southern District of New York under President George W. Bush. He's worked in the private sector with Lockheed Martin, Bridgewater Associates, and at the law firm McGuire Woods. When Mr. Comey appeared before this committee in 2007, he described a dramatic hospital bedside confrontation with senior White House officials who were trying to get an ailing John Ashcroft, who's in the hospital, about to have serious surgery, or had it, to reauthorize an NSA surveillance program, a program the Justice Department had concluded was illegal. As Deputy Attorney General, Mr. Comey showed courage and independence by standing firm against this attempt to circumvent the rule of law. And I want him to continue to demonstrate the same strength of character if he's confirmed as director. And since the terrorist attacks September 11th, the FBI has dramatically increased its national security and counterterrorism efforts. But that's a transition that has not been without problems. From national security letters to the latest revelations about the use of Patriot Act surveillance authorities, I remain concerned that we have not yet struck the right balance between the intelligence gathering needs of the FBI and the privacy rights of Americans. We all agree that the FBI has to have the tools necessary to help keep us safe from terrorism. But I hope that we can agree that those should not come at the expense of our constitutional rights. It's these constitutional rights that make us unique and great as a nation. In recent weeks, Americans have become aware of the expansive scope of surveillance authorities granted to the FBI by the Patriot Act and other laws. We have heard administration officials defend these programs by saying they're critical to identifying and connecting the so-called dots. There's always going to be more dots to analyze and collect and try to connect. And when government is collecting data on millions of totally innocent Americans on a daily basis, when is enough enough? Just because we have the ability to collect huge amounts of data doesn't mean that we should be doing it. Last month, I introduced the FISA Accountability and Privacy Protection Act to ensure there are proper limits on the government's surveillance activities, along with strong privacy protections and oversight. But as the head of our premier law enforcement agency, the FBI director bears a special responsibility for ensuring that domestic government surveillance does not unduly infringe upon our freedoms. I've long said that protecting our national security and protecting Americans' fundamental rights are not and should not be exclusive. We can and must do both. I look forward to Mr. Comey's testimony about how we achieve both goals. I also have concerns about the Justice Department's treatment of journalists. As a son of Vermont printers and publishers, the First Amendment is in my blood. The burden falls to the federal government to ensure that freedom of speech and of the press is being protected. I'm very concerned by allegations regarding the broad collection of the Associated Press phone records. Again, I've confirmed Mr. Comey is going to be tasked with balancing the government law enforcement interests with First Amendment rights. I'm concerned, as others have been here, that during Mr. Comey's tenure as Deputy Attorney General, he approved a legal memo that authorized use of waterboarding and other techniques long recognized as torture under both domestic and international law. I've conducted oversight on this issue for years on my belief that these memos led to the treatment of detainees. It was contrary to our laws and our values and actually made us less safe, not more safe. It's critical that whoever takes over as director of the FBI has a keen sense of history. Understanding we must never repeat these mistakes because they leave a permanent stain on this great nation. We learned nothing else from those years following the September 11th attacks. We learned it matters who leads our nation at all levels of government. We need strong, ethical leaders who will steadfastly adhere to the rule of law. The next director has to face the challenge how to sustain the FBI's increased focus on counterterrorism while upholding the FBI's commitment to its historic law enforcement functions. So, of course, we want to hear what you feel are the priorities for the next decade. It is a 10-year term. As Director Mueller noted, and I applauded him on the floor for this speech, he noted on the 100th anniversary of the FBI, the rule of law, civil liberties, and civil rights are not burdens for the FBI. They are what have made the FBI better for more than a century. So we will look forward to see how Mr. Comey, if confirmed, would lead the FBI during these challenging times. And I yield to Senator Grassley.
Yeah. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you, Mr. Comey, for wanting to re-enter public service again. The director of the Federal Bureau of Investigation is charged with running a vast agency with tremendous powers. This power, if used inappropriately, could threaten civil liberties of every American. However, when used appropriately and subject to rigorous oversight by the Congress, it protects the nation from terrorists, spies, and hardened criminals. The Attorney General is commonly referred to as the top law enforcement officer in the country. The FBI Director serves as the Attorney General, and the American people as a top cop on the street. It's a demanding job that requires a keen understanding of the law, sound management skills, calm under significant pressure, and a level head. Director Mueller learned this soon after arriving at FBI headquarters when the United States was attacked by terrorists on September the 11th, 2001. As a result of those terrible attacks, Director Mueller's mission as FBI Director changed very instantly and significantly. Instead of managing a law enforcement agency, he was immediately thrust into the role of reinventing a storied law enforcement agency into a national security agency. This is not the sort of change that happens overnight. Fortunately, Director Mueller rose to the challenge and changed the face of the FBI for this new age and new threat. The threats of our country facing are great and multifaceted. Terrorism is an unfortunate reality the FBI must face, in addition to serving as a law enforcement agency and the lead counterintelligence agency. The next director of the FBI must be prepared to continue the transition. He must also be prepared to manage the FBI through the next challenge. Despite the successes Director Mueller had in transforming the FBI to deal with national security threats, challenges remain for the next FBI director. For example, legacy problems such as developing a working case management computer system, effectively managing agent rotations to Washington, D.C. Headquarters, managing linguists, and dealing with aging infrastructure such as the FBI headquarters building. Additionally, management concerns remain about the proper personnel balance between special agents and analysts, the perceived double standard of discipline between line agents and management, as well as the issues dealing with whistleblower retaliation. These matters must be addressed as they threaten to undermine the hard work of all the faithful employees at the FBI. The position of FBI director is unique in that it is a 10-year appointment, subject to the advice and consent of the Senate. This 10-year term was extended 2 years ago on a one-time basis only. The extension allowed Director Mueller to serve an additional time frame as the President failed to nominate a replacement. At the time, we held a special hearing to discuss the importance of the term limit for the FBI director. One of the reasons Congress created a 10-year term was to ensure accountability of the FBI. This confirmation hearing is part of that accountability. We have a responsibility to ensure that the director will be able to balance the duties of FBI director against the civil liberties of Americans. Before us today is the President's choice, the next FBI director, you, Mr. James Comey. Mr. Comey has a distinguished past. He served as a Senate-confirmed U.S. Attorney for the Southern District, New York, and as Deputy Attorney General during the Bush administration. I would also like to add that he has smarts because he married an Iowan. But Mr. Comey handled difficult matters.
Do anything to get a vote up here.
Mr. Comey handled difficult matters that provide a solid basis for the types of matters that may come up as FBI director. I had the opportunity to sit down with Mr. Comey yesterday. We talked about his government experience and how it prepares him for the job. So today I want to discuss with him his non-governmental employment work with Lockheed Martin, hedge fund Bridgewater Partners, and his position board of directors at HSBC. Having the balance of public and private sector experience is a very good thing. But I have openly concerned about the administration's failure to prosecute those involved in the financial crisis, including criminal wrongdoing at HSBC. I want to know whether Mr. Comey can look beyond his affiliations in the private sector and prosecute such wrongdoing. I also want to discuss with Mr. Comey a number of policy matters impacting the director. First, I continue to have serious concerns with the FBI's treatment of whistleblowers. Mr. Comey and I discussed the important role whistleblowers play in bringing transparency and accountability to bureaucracies. Unfortunately, the FBI, in my opinion, has a poor history of retaliating against whistleblowers who come forward and report wrongdoing. This is particularly concerning in light of the recent leaks of classified information. While not necessarily an FBI matter, the recent leaks have highlighted an issue I have focused on for years: whistleblower protection for national security employees. These employees, including many assigned at the FBI, need a protected mechanism to report wrongdoing without fear of retaliation. I believe a significant number of national security leaks would not have occurred if they had a path forward. Unfortunately, a provision in the Whistleblower Protection Enhancement Act that I authored expanded protection to national security employees but was cut by the House of Representatives prior to being signed into law. I continue to believe this is a necessary legislation. I'd like to hear Mr. Comey's thoughts on whistleblowers, their value, and how he will handle whistleblower complaints. I'd like an assurance from Mr. Comey that whistleblowers will not face retaliation. Further, I would like an assurance that the FBI's policy pursuing endless appeals against whistleblowers, even when retaliation was found by the Inspector General, will now come to an end. Second, I want to ask Mr. Comey about some recent developments regarding FBI use of drones within the U.S. A few weeks ago, we learned from Mueller that the FBI was using drones here for surveillance. While Director Mueller indicated that this was very limited, he also said that policies regarding limitations on drone use were still being developed. And so that's concerning, as policies are little use if they are developed after the FBI deploys drones here. Further, the FBI's use of drones calls into question the thoroughness of a written response I received from the Attorney General Holder indicating the use of drones by DEA and ATF, but only mentioning the FBI in passing. So I want to hear from Mr. Comey what he thinks the proper limit on domestic use of drones should be, whether he would delay their use until final regulations and policies are drafted, and how he would deploy drones for domestic use. So I'd also discuss with him his views on national security and the FBI role. We are all painfully aware of the limitations that were placed on FBI agents prior to 9/11 and the so-called wall between intelligence and law enforcement. Congress and the executive branch have been successful in bringing down the walls between intelligence and law enforcement, but concerns expressed in recent years threaten to rebuild those walls. For example, advocates have opposed information sharing of cybersecurity threat information which could erroneously reconstitute a separation similar to a wall. I'd like to hear Mr. Comey's views on national security matters such as cybersecurity, counterintelligence, and counterterrorism. Also discuss the nuts and bolts management matters with the nominee. Specifically, I want to hear his assurances that he will work cooperatively with Congress and provide forthcoming responses to inquiries. Congress has a constitutional duty to conduct oversight, and so given the wide discretion the FBI has to conduct investigations, Congress needs to have an open channel to obtain information relative to our oversight requests. Finally, I want to discuss some general management issues such as the disciplinary system, which has long been criticized for having a double standard for management as opposed to line agents. Problems like this are dangerous to an agency and need to be managed before they bring out other problems. So there's a lot of ground to cover, and obviously I'll probably have to submit some questions for answer in writing. Thank you very much.
Thank you. I've note that Senator Blumenthal is the senior senator of the state in which Mr. Comey resides, or as we call it in Vermont, one of those southern states. And Senator Blumenthal, did you wish to introduce
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I do, and I appreciate the honor of introducing Mr. Comey to the committee and supporting him strongly for this new role in an extraordinarily distinguished career of public service. I want to welcome him and his family, his wife, Patrice, and I think a number of your children are with you today, and I'll let you introduce them, but I look forward to saying hello to them later when we're done. I want to say how much I admire Mr. Comey's record of public service. He really epitomizes what is best about American public service. Senator Grassley mentioned that he was re-entering public service, but in a sense he has never left it, because in his private life, his life of working in the private sector, he has also contributed immensely to his community and to his state, the state of Connecticut and the community of Westport, where he and his wife Patrice really have devoted themselves and his family to serving the needs and interests of both their community and the state and many individuals who live there. Mr. Comey is no stranger to our civil and criminal justice system. In fact, his life has been about public service and about using the Department of Justice as an agent and a means to achieve greater justice in our society. He began his career at the Department of Justice in one of the most difficult and important jobs there is as an assistant United States attorney in the Southern District of New York, and he quickly rose to become the deputy chief of the criminal division. As a former United States attorney myself, I know how important that responsibility is in a practical, hands-on sense of making extraordinarily difficult decisions about balancing individual rights and also the need to prosecute and achieve greater security and safety for the community. He took on another difficult job as managing assistant United States attorney for the Eastern District of Virginia, and he was recognized by his superiors there as an unusually skilled prosecutor who could be counted on to get results and get the job done. And he had personal responsibility for prosecuting one of the most heinous terrorist attacks in the history of the United States at Khobar Towers barracks in Saudi Arabia, and he quickly delivered 14 indictments. He was promoted at that time to be United States Attorney for the Southern District of New York, one of the major prosecutorial areas outside of Washington. And he showed the same fearlessness and tirelessness and relentlessness in his dedication to justice there, which have become his trademark as a professional prosecutor. He also pursued corporate crime in some of America's biggest businesses, and he was recognized for his performance there with the Director's Award for Superior Performance and the Henry L. Stimson Medal from the New York City Bar Association. In fact, throughout his career, he's been recognized not only in the public sector, but also by the private bar. Mr. Comey's success led to his nomination to be Deputy Attorney General for the United States, the second highest ranking official at the Department of Justice. And a lot has been written and said about his tenure in that role. I had the privilege of working with him in a number of respects as Attorney General for Connecticut during that period of time. But I came to admire his extraordinary courage in standing up and speaking out to his superiors and his willingness to speak truth to power and defend the most fundamental liberties and guarantees that our Constitution provides. And I know that whatever the members of this committee think about Mr. Comey's views, they can count on his complete and utter integrity, his devotion to the rule of law, his dedication to excellence in the pursuit of justice and civil liberties, which he has demonstrated not just in words, but in action throughout his career. In Westport, Connecticut, I particularly admired the work that his wife and he have done in the community, as I mentioned earlier, but I think noteworthy for this committee, and I know a number of my colleagues are aware that he and his wife are licensed foster parents in Connecticut and have cared for infants and toddlers in that role. They've also donated their time and energy and resources to create a foundation to support children who age out of foster care. So his life has been about public service. I'm honored and pleased that he has chosen to assume this very demanding and challenging role. I want to thank him and his family for the service and sacrifices they've made. And thank you, Mr. Comey, for joining us today. I look forward to hearing your testimony. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. Mr. Comey, before I swear you in, just so we can have it on the record for the Comey archives someday, would you introduce everybody who's here from your family?
Yes, Senator. I have my...
And is your microphone on? There you go.
Sorry, forgot that. Behind me to my left is my wife, Patrice. Senator Blumenthal mentioned the love of my life, and all that is good about me is her fault. And then my 5 children, who are seated in just about the same seats they were sitting in 10 years ago when I was here to be confirmed as Deputy Attorney General. They're a little bit older.
I was going to say, I was here at that time, and they have changed.
They have, right. The only one who hasn't aged a bit is my wife. The rest of us have gotten a little bit older. Maureen is 24. Kate is 23. Brian is 19. Claire is 16. And Abby is 13. And those are my troops.
Thank you. Now would you please stand and you solemnly swear that the testimony you've given this matter will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but truth, so help you God.
I do.
Please go ahead, Mr. Comey.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, Senator Grassley, and members of the committee. It is an honor to be back before you. The last time I sat at this table was 2 years ago or so to testify in favor of extending Bob Mueller's term by 2 years. Now I'm back asking you to confirm me to replace Bob Mueller, which is both an amazing honor and a little bit hard to believe. I have known and loved the FBI for a very long time. My first major case was an FBI case in 1987. I was assigned an interstate theft and fraud case in the Southern District of New York. And the case agent, who was actually about to retire from the Bureau, he's reached mandatory retirement, went back and reported to his supervisor that a baby prosecutor had been assigned to this complex case. And she said, I'll go down and talk to Rudy Giuliani and we'll get somebody else assigned to this case. And he asked her to please hold off because he thought that this prosecutor maybe could be trained. And so I was trained by him and by dozens and dozens of other special agents who were working the cases that I was so lucky to handle over the next decades. I came to know the FBI agents well, and I used to tell them the division of responsibility was clear. They would do hard, dangerous work, and the United States Attorney would get the credit. I was, of course, teasing, but rooted in that joke was some truth, that FBI agents, every hour of every day, did really hard, dangerous things, and their work was often only recognized when something went wrong. I came to know that they were people from all over the country, all walks of life, but united by a fierce desire to do something good for their country. I came to know that they embodied something that Churchill said that has stuck with me, that you make a living by what you get, but you make a life by what you give. They chose to make remarkable lives without getting much in return. Those people are what excite me most about the prospect of being confirmed to be the director of the FBI. I also know that if I'm confirmed for this position, I will follow a great American, one who has been clear-eyed about the threat facing our country, especially the metastasizing terrorist threat, the cyber threat that poses a risk to our secrets, to our commerce, to our people, and most ominously to the networks we depend upon as our lifeblood. I know he has changed the FBI, as the chairman and the ranking member described, in fundamental and crucial ways. I know that this
220. The nays are 182. The previous question is ordered. The question is on adoption of the resolution. Those in favor say aye. Those opposed say no. In the opinion of the chair, the ayes have it. So the gentleman from Texas seek recognition.
Mr. Speaker, I would like to request the yeas and nays.
The yeas and nays are requested. Those favoring a vote by the yeas and nays will rise. A sufficient number having risen, the yeas and nays are ordered. Members will record their votes by electronic device. This is a 5-minute vote.
And now the second of 3 votes in this series as the House is debating energy and water project spending bills for fiscal year 2014. This is one of the 12 bills Congress has to debate every year that keeps the federal government operating. This is a vote on the roll for debating this measure. The bill itself provides just over $30 billion. It's 9% less than this year, 12% less than the president requested. The administration does say that the president will veto the bill if it's sent to him as it is. It's a 5-minute vote once again. Up next, we expect a vote on the journal. It's a record of the previous day's activities in the House. The Associated Press is reporting this afternoon the Texas House is debating a bill that will impose tough new restrictions on abortions. Republican leaders are intent on passing it quickly. A vote is expected this afternoon. Democrats and women's rights supporters have protested the bill for weeks. Supporters say the bill will offer women more protection when they seek abortions. Critics say conservatives are trying to make the procedure harder to get. The bill would require doctors to have admitting privileges at nearby hospitals. It would ban abortions after 20 weeks. We do have a link to that debate on our website. It's available at cspan.org. Also, the Privacy and Civil Liberties Oversight Board is conducting a day-long workshop with experts, academics, and advocacy organizations regarding surveillance programs operated under the Patriot Act and the Foreign Intelligence Surveillance Act. We also have a link to that discussion on our website. Again, it's at cspan.org. Also, Vice President Biden will be in Arizona this afternoon to attend the memorial service for those 19 firefighters killed fighting wildfires back in June in Yarnell, Arizona. The 19 men were members of the Prescott Fire Department's Hot Shot Unit. Coverage begins at 1:45 Eastern. You can see it on C-SPAN 3.
On this vote, the yeas are 226, the nays are 178. The resolution is adopted. Without objection, a motion to reconsider is laid on the table. Pursuant to Clause 8 of Rule 20, the unfinished business is the question of agreeing to the Speaker's approval of the journal, on which the yeas and nays were ordered. The question is on agreeing to the Speaker's approval of the journal. Members will record their votes by electronic device. This is a 5-minute vote.
And with the vote on the roll approved, the House will begin general debate on the Energy and Water Project spending bill for fiscal year 2014 after this vote. The roll itself calls for an hour of general debate and unlimited amendments. The next votes related to the bill not expected until about 5:45 this afternoon. Now, the final vote in this series is a vote on the journal. It's a record of the previous day's activities in the House. A quick reminder that C-SPAN 3 has live coverage this afternoon of Vice President Joe Biden. He is in Arizona today attending the memorial service for those 19 firefighters who were killed in Yarnell, Arizona last month. The 19 men were members of the Prescott Fire Department's Hot Shot Unit. Again, coverage getting underway in just a couple of minutes live on C-SPAN 3, 1:45 Eastern.
On this vote, the yeas are 262, the nays are 138. The journal stands approved. One answering present, I'm sorry. For what purpose does the gentleman from Mississippi seek recognition?
Mr. Speaker, I ask unanimous consent that the Committee on House Administration be discharged from further consideration of House Concurrent Resolution 43 and ask for its immediate consideration in the House.
The clerk will report the title of the concurrent resolution.
House Concurrent Resolution 43, concurrent resolution authorizing the use of Emancipation Hall in the Capitol Visitor Center for a ceremony honoring the life and legacy of Nelson Mandela on the occasion of the 95th anniversary of his birth.
Is there objection to the consideration of the concurrent resolution? Without objection, the current resolution is agreed to and the motion to reconsider is laid on the table. Where is it? For what purpose does the gentleman from New Jersey seek recognition?
Mr. Speaker, I ask unanimous consent that all members may have 5 legislative days in which to revise and extend their remarks and exclude extraneous material on consideration of H.R. 2609, and that I might include tabular material on the same.
Without objection. Pursuant to House Resolution 288 and Rule 18, the Chair declares the House and the Committee of the Whole on the State of the Union for the consideration of H.R. 2609. The Chair appoints the gentleman from Illinois, Mr. Holcren, to preside over the Committee of the Whole.
The House is in the Committee of the Whole House on the State of the Union for the consideration of H.R. 2609, which the clerk will report by title.
A bill making appropriations for energy and water development and related agencies for the fiscal year ending September 30th, 2014, and for other purposes.
Pursuant to the rule, the bill is considered read the first time. The gentleman from New Jersey, Mr. Frelinghuysen, and the gentlewoman from Ohio, Ms. Kaptur, each will control 30 minutes. The Chair recognizes the gentleman from New Jersey.
Mr. Chairman, I yield myself as much time as I may consume.
Gentleman from New Jersey is recognized.
It's my honor to bring the fiscal year 2014 Energy and Water Development Bill before the membership of the House. However, before I go through its highlights, I'd like to thank my ranking member, Ms. Kaptur, for her partnership on this bill and hard work and friendship. It's been a real honor to work with you, and I look forward to working with you to get through the entire process. And Mr. Chairman, I'd also like to thank all the members of our committee on both sides of the aisle for putting this bill so quickly together and so responsibly. I'd also like to recognize the hard work of Chairman Rogers and Ranking Member Lowy to bring this bill and several others before it to the floor under an open rule. The bill for fiscal year 2014 totals $30.4 billion, 2.9 below last year's levels, and more than $4 billion below the President's request. The budget allocation we received this year made for some very difficult decisions. But in our bipartisan tradition, we worked hard to incorporate priorities and perspectives from both sides of the aisle. Mr. Chairman, the House is not in order.
The gentleman is correct. The committee will be in order. The gentleman is recognized.
Mr. Chairman, we place the greatest priority on national defense, our nuclear deterrent, also the critical work of the Army Corps of Engineers and other activities on which the federal government must take the lead. The reductions we had to make to the applied energy and research and development programs will shift more of their work to the private sector. The bill provides $7.6 billion, an increase of $98 million above the fiscal year 2013 amount, to modernize the nation's nuclear weapons stockpile and support its infrastructure, excluding rescissions. I would also like to note that the recommendation contains no funding to implement the President's recently announced plans in Berlin to reduce the nuclear stockpile. No funding for such purposes will be available until Congress has judged that these plans will fully support our national defense. The recommendation increases the Corps of Engineers by $50 million above the President's request and redirects funds to ensure our waterways and harbors keep America open for business and economically competitive. These waterways and harbors handled foreign commerce valued at more than $1.7 trillion last year alone. As in previous fiscal years, the bill maintains the constitutional role of Congress in the appropriations process by ensuring that all worthy Corps of Engineers projects have a chance to compete for funding. Basic science programs total $4.7 billion, just above last year's post-sequestration levels. Environmental cleanup programs to address the legacy of the Manhattan Project and other contaminated sites are funded at $5.5 billion, approximately $185 million above the post-sequester levels for fiscal year 2013. In order to find room for the bill's core priorities, applied energy and research and development had to be cut. The recommendation prioritizes funding in this area for programs which truly support American manufacturing jobs, stable energy prices, and diversity of energy supplies. Our bill includes $450 million for fossil energy technologies and $650 million for nuclear energy activities. Both of these programs are cut below the fiscal year 2013 post-sequester level. The bill combines the electricity delivery program and the energy efficiency and renewable energy program and provides $983 million for these activities, excluding rescissions. The recommendations also orients these programs to focus on electricity infrastructure resilience to include cybersecurity and gasoline prices. And finally, on Yucca Mountain, our recommendation includes $25 million to sustain the program, along with similar language as last year's, prohibiting activities that would keep that facility from being usable in the future. It also includes support for the Nuclear Regulatory Commission to get that Yucca license application finally finished. No funding is included for requested activities to move past Yucca Mountain Repository Program. If and when Congress authorizes changes to the program of record, the committee will consider funding for alternatives. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. This bill recognizes our fiscal realities. It makes the tough decisions to ensure we get our spending under control without sacrificing our most critical of federal function. I'm expecting a vigorous and open debate during an open process over the coming days so all can have a chance to contribute to this legislation. Before I reserve the balance of my time, I want to thank those who helped bring this bill to the floor. On the majority side, our clerk, Rob Blair, Angie DiCarlo, Ben Hammond, Lorraine Heckenberg, Perry Yates, Adam Borelli. On the minority side, Tanya Burkham. From our personal offices, Ms. Captors, Nathan Facey, her Deputy Chief of Staff, and Ryan Steyer. From my staff, Nancy Fox, my Chief of Staff, and Katie Hazlett. All of these individuals and others behind the scenes make this process work, one that we can be proud of, and I think we have a bill that indeed we can be proud of, and I reserve the balance of my time.
The gentleman from New Jersey reserves the balance of his time. Gentlewoman from Ohio is recognized.
Yes, Mr. Chairman, I appreciate Chairman Frelinghuysen's able and collegial leadership throughout this process and efforts to assemble a bill in an inclusive manner in our subcommittee. I also want to say what a pleasure it was to work with him, and I wish all subcommittees could work as effectively. I want to thank Chairman Rogers and Ranking Member Lowy for their efforts to restore a semblance of regular order to this House in consideration of our appropriation bills. And I want to thank all the members of our subcommittee for their thoughtful deliberation in considering the best interests of our nation as they relate to energy and water development and, importantly, America's nuclear security. I appreciate the dedication, hard work, and sound judgment of our committee staff on both sides of the aisle. On the majority committee staff side, Rob Blair, Ben Hammond, Lorraine Heckenberg, Angie Giancarlo, Perry Yates, and Adam Borelli. And on the minority committee staff side, Tanya Berquam, Katie Hazlett, Nancy Fox, Ryan Stair, Nathan Facey, and Steve Fote. While Chairman Frelinghuysen's worthy efforts are to be commended in the highest way, the allocation imposed on our subcommittee by the Republican leaders of this House and its Budget Committee move America backwards in a global economy where our nation's future is at stake. The Budget Committee's directive to us reminds me of a seafaring expression. If you don't know which way your ship is headed, you're bound to run aground or die at sea. This bill runs America aground. It says to future generations, we'll risk your lives floating lost at sea. It's simply inadequate to meet the needs of our nation. America's budget deficit spiked because high unemployment resulting from Wall Street's abandon and over a decade of war caused high unemployment that reduced federal revenues. This bill will not embrace the future, nor create the necessary jobs to reverse that trend and lift up America's working families. Our focus has to be on the future, on creating jobs and opportunity with every single measure that comes before this House. Foreign energy dependence is our nation's chief strategic vulnerability. This bill abandons America's quest for energy independence, and has the potential to create millions of new jobs. For every American life lost in pursuit of our nation's national security, now dependent on energy imports, I dedicate my work on this bill today. And I also dedicate my work on the floor in memory of Judge Francis Buddy Restivo, a World War II veteran who passed this weekend, and just a phenomenal citizen of our country. This bill not only guts funding for alternative energy research and development, it officially heralds the Republican majority's embrace of sequestration. Sequestration is the most vivid symbol of congressional negligence. With that one dreadful bill, the Republican majority manages not only to turn its back on energy independence, but also to surrender its congressional responsibility to manage the budget of our country responsibly. The majority has waved the white flag. This year in the Lake Erie region, we are celebrating the heroics of Commodore Oliver Hazard Perry, hero of the pivotal Battle of Lake Erie in the War of 1812. Oliver Hazard Perry's motto was, "Don't give up the ship." The majority's motto is, "We just give up." We give up trying to perform our constitutional responsibilities with respect to fiscal affairs. We give up trying to create the much-needed jobs that will restore our fiscal footing. We give up trying to help America break free of its dependence on imported petroleum. We just give up. Let the mindless sequester be the status quo. It's no mystery why Congress's approval ratings have hit an all-time low. This policy is running our economic ship of state aground when we need full sail ahead. Allocation for the energy and water bill is $30.4 billion, which is $4.1 billion below the administration's request and $2.8 billion below last year's level. There are further allocation cuts beyond even sequestration levels, resulting in deep and severe reductions made to important priorities within the bill. The chairman worked to include resources for many federal priorities, including the Corps of Engineers, the Advanced Manufacturing Office, nuclear safety and cleanup, and the bill also prioritizes some of the nuclear security programs. But funding these programs came at the expense of others so vital to future energy systems for our nation, including renewable energy, cut by nearly 60%, and advanced energy research at ARPA-E, which received an 81% reduction. Shortchanging critical energy and infrastructure investments will slow economic growth and job creation, hindering America's competitiveness. Let us look at the water accounts. We must continue to invest in America. the scope of damage caused by natural disasters like Hurricane Sandy have laid bare the inadequacies of our water infrastructure. Corps of Engineers' budget currently has a backlog of unauthorized projects in excess of $60 billion from coast to coast. But this bill continues a steady decline in water resource infrastructure, reducing the construction account by $331 million from 2013. Communities across our country will continue to erode as they experience firsthand this decreased investment. The risks illustrated by the failure of flood control projects that the American people endured in the wake of Katrina are not gone. Communities across our country are in desperate need of investment, but this bill shortcuts that. Take St. Louis, Missouri, or Sacramento, California, where a levee break could leave residents with as little as 20 minutes to flee before the water gets 1 foot deep, are just two examples of major metropolitan areas where the Corps must work harder and faster toward more comprehensive protection. What sense does cleaning up after natural disasters make when preventive measures could prevent destruction and loss of life? We should be doing more to build infrastructure and create jobs, not less. Investments now will yield future benefits that will far outweigh repayment costs. That is what the Hoover Dam was all about. That is what our Mississippi River lock and dam system is all about. That is what electrifying our nation, rural and urban, was all about. Great visions for a great nation, not Lilliputian surrender. On future energy systems, this bill would slash funding for applied energy research and development by more than half, even as foreign competition doubles down to develop 21st century technology, while undermining our markets through illegal dumping and intellectual property theft. Renewable energy is a vital leg of future energy independence beyond the fossil fuel age. It will achieve cost competitiveness, but the question is which countries will develop and own those technologies. The United States has spent $2.3 trillion importing foreign petroleum since 2003, representing thousands and thousands of dollars out of the pockets of every hard-working American family. These are dollars diverted not to much-needed American job creation, but overseas, assisting our competitors in developing their economies and their energy futures. We are ceding millions of jobs and trillions in income from this country to undemocratic kingdoms far from home. Wake up, America. Wake up, Congress. In 2012, every $1 billion of U.S. exports supported nearly 5,000 jobs here at home. But can you imagine what $2.3 trillion in our energy trade deficit translates into lost jobs in America over the last 10 years? It's a hemorrhage. Our republic will not compete in this 21st century and beyond if we further reduce investments in this area and cede our energy future to other countries. Predatory foreign competition in energy poses a real security threat to our country. I view it as the chief security threat to our country. I appreciate the Chairman's commitment to ensure that technology developed with taxpayer dollars benefits our nation first. Department of Energy, however, must do more to ensure that intellectual property supported by federal dollars furthers the interests of the United States economy. And I'm concerned with the level of funding, but I appreciate the Chairman's commitment to American manufacturing in this bill. Manufacturing remains one of the most important job drivers in our economy, and there is little merit in using federal dollars to foster technological advances or breakthroughs for products that are not ultimately made in America and manufactured domestically. America must do more to reverse the trend of domestic firms shifting production overseas because, to put it simply, domestic manufacturing drives domestic innovation and jobs here in America. Tragically, the science account critical to the competitiveness of our nation is reduced by 5% from 2012. And with an 81% reduction in the new ARPA-E program, this bill would effectively end the most advanced research our nation can launch. That is not a formula for success. We are beginning to see the initial payment from the ARPA-E, which advances high-potential, high-impact energy technology so advanced they are too early for private sector investment. Return on investment from our publicly funded research and development ranges from 20 to 67%. It's a home run. With this rate of return, Congress should be increasing our investment in science. This bill moves us exactly in the opposite direction. Finally, I remain concerned this bill increases spending for nuclear weapons upgrades at the expense of nuclear non-proliferation and cleanup. I support the funding to maintain our nuclear arsenal at acceptable levels, and I appreciate the efforts to improve program and project management, including the reporting requirement on life extension programs at the Nuclear Security Agency. However, non-proliferation programs are on the front lines of our defense. They are the most cost-effective way to achieve the urgent goal of securing and reducing the amount of vulnerable bomb-grade material. But this bill cuts these critical efforts by $559 million. What sense does that make? Further, I am concerned that the funding the bill includes for environmental management activities is insufficient to meet the federal government's legal obligations to clean up its defense nuclear waste. In sum, this bill should achieve critical investments in our country. It fails to do so. It should promote job creation. It fails to do so. It should ensure national energy security and national security. It fails to do so. It should protect and promote vital infrastructure. It fails to do so. And it should advance American competitiveness, and it fails to do so. Unfortunately, Republicans on the Budget Committee continue to push the outrageous notion that we can balance our budget through cuts to non-defense discretionary spending, which account for only 17% of federal spending. In so doing, they harm America's future in a very major way. Again, I commend the Chairman's effort. However, the allocation for this bill is insufficient and irresponsible, and I cannot in good conscience support it. It is my firm hope that the committee will be provided a workable path toward the fiscal 2014 appropriation bills, and I look forward to the day we will return allocations to acceptable levels and to working with the Chairman to draft a bill worthy of support. Let me, before reserving the balance of my time, read that quote right up there above the Speaker's rostrum. Let us develop the resources of our land, call forth its powers, build up its institutions, promote all its great interests, and see whether we also, in our day and generation, may not perform something worthy to be remembered. That is our charge in this bill, and this bill fails. Mr. Chair, I reserve the balance of my time.
Gentlelady from Ohio reserves her time. The gentleman from New Jersey.
I reserve the balance.